Hi and welcome to the weekly market update. It is Tuesday the 2nd of July 2013. Okay, so in terms of data that we've seen this week, yesterday it was a day of sort of PMI manufacturing numbers across all countries. It started the day off with some good data out of Japan. We saw the Tankan survey coming out better than expected, so some good data for Japan there. However, we then moved to China and we actually saw some disappointing data from China in terms of their PMI manufacturing numbers. This theme then continued through the day. We saw Eurozone PMI numbers all coming in pretty much in line with expectation, improving from last, but in line with those expectations. Then from the UK, we saw their reading for PMI manufacturing as well. That came in slightly better than expected. And then from the US in the afternoon, we had the market final reading for PMI. This came in at 51.9, slightly lower than the 52.4 that we were expecting. So still a decent number, but not quite as good as expected. Also from the US yesterday, we had ISM manufacturing number, again at 50.9 from a 50.5, so actually a better reading there. So sort of a mixed picture, but still decent numbers from the US there. In terms of data that we've seen today, we've had UK PMI construction number out this morning. This came in around the 51 mark for the UK. Otherwise, in terms of data today, we've seen Eurozone PPI numbers, but otherwise it's a pretty quiet day for data. It's been a very quiet start to the week. This week, I think everyone is holding out. We've obviously got the central bank meetings on Thursday, which are going to be very closely watched. We've got the Bank of England and also the ECB meetings, and then Friday brings non-farm payroll numbers. So I think we've sort of got a wait and see feel in the market today. People sort of a bit worried to get involved, just sort of want to wait to see what happens later on in the week. So in terms of where we are standing on the back of the data we've seen early part of this week, we've got the FTSE trading around the 6280 mark, the Dow around 14921. In terms of currencies, we've got the euro dollar trading at 1 spot 30.31, cable around the 1 spot 51.95. For commodities, we've seen some strength coming back into the gold. We've got that trading around the 12.58 spot 30 mark, and then we've got the Brent future trading around 102 spot 60. That's the September Brent future. So in terms of data that we've got left coming out today, we've got some more figures from the US this afternoon. It's ISM New York number and also the US factory orders coming in this afternoon, expecting those to tick up from last. So expecting a reading around 2% from a prior 1%. Okay, so into tomorrow, relatively quiet, no UK data around, but from Eurozone we get PMI services figures from again the regions and then the Eurozone as a whole, expecting those largely in line with the last readings. Consensus around for those to stay about the same, so not really looking for anything drastic there. We also get Eurozone retail sales, expecting those to be better from last, coming in around the positive 0.3%, so hoping for some good retail sales there. Otherwise, it's US data, and probably the biggest figure of the day is going to be that ADP employment change, which is closely watched before the non-farm numbers that we get on Friday. So people try and use that sort of as an indication, expecting that ADP number to come in around the 160,000 mark. Otherwise, we've got initial jobless and continuing claims for the US coming out on Wednesday this week. This is because of its Independence Day on Thursday, so we've got a holiday in the US, so moving those initial jobless and continuing claims data to Wednesday. So quite a lot of employment data coming out Wednesday ahead of Friday. Otherwise, we've got an ISM non-manufacturing figure from the US, expecting that to be slightly better than last, around the 54 mark from 53.7. Okay, so on to Thursday, as I said, holiday in the US, so no data from them. In terms of European data, we've got Italian deficit to GDP ratio out in the morning, expecting that around 2.9% mark. And then we've got from the UK PMI services reading. But obviously, as I mentioned, the big events of the day are going to be that Bank of England announcement of the rates and asset purchases. It's a particularly important one because it's Carney's first meeting. He started the job yesterday, July 1st, and Thursday, July 4th will be his first meeting. It's been quite a lot of hype about Carney coming into office. People sort of expecting quite a lot from him. George Osborne's marked him as the most outstanding central banker of his generation. So people have got quite high expectations, but then you have got some people on the other side of the fence saying that he may disappoint because of these such high expectations he's been given. We're not really expecting any change, as I said, in this first meeting, maybe looking towards his August meeting once he's settled in, and we'll be looking for the statements more that he makes as an indication of where he might push monetary policy for the UK. Obviously, after the Bank of England meeting, we've then got the ECB's announcement of their rates at 12:45. Again, people not really expecting any change here. I think consensus is those to stay the same. So what will be closely watched is Draghi's press conference following at 1:30, expecting probably a largely dovish tone after the comments that we've seen this week and last from officials. They have had a very dovish tone, stating that we're a long way off from changing policy. It's still data dependent. Comments along those lines. So we'll be watching that press conference to see if Draghi gives any more indication of where he thinks monetary policy could be going and some sort of timescale for this. And so finally into Friday, in terms of European data, we've got French trade balance out in the morning, we've got Spanish industrial output as well, and German factory orders. But obviously the main numbers of Friday are going to be those US non-farm payroll numbers, obviously a very highly watched number after the holiday Thursday. Be interesting to see how we react on that. We're expecting around 165,000 for the non-farm number, following a last reading of 175,000. We'll also get the unemployment rate. Actually, the consensus is that to tick down to 7.5 from the 7.6 last reading. So watch out to see what effect the rate does have there, and you'll get the average earnings data alongside that. Okay, so that's all for this week in terms of data. Things to watch out for are going to be those central banks meetings. See if we, any change from Carney or any activity from Carney on Thursday. Draghi's press conference Thursday as well, and then you've got those non-farm figures on Friday. Okay, that's it for this week. As usual, any feedback is much appreciated. Thanks.